Hello there. Thanks a lot for coming by PosterCentral.com's video blog today. I'm Pete Howard, and boy, what an early sweet R&B piece I have to show you today. Oh my gosh, 1951 Globe poster classic for a couple of really important R&B artists from very early in the second half of the century, I guess you would say, of the 20th century. And it's just, boy, the Clovers and Paul Williams, a beautiful jumbo Globe tour blank made by Globe, again out of Baltimore, Maryland. Now this is of course trimmed at the top. Tour blanks generally or often are full-sized, and they have a bigger white area up here at the top in order to print in the city, the venue, the name of the arena, the hall, and of course ticket price, and of course the date. Well, this one was about half that area along the top was trimmed off, perhaps to fit into a frame or something, so it's a trimmed tour blank, I guess you could call it. Originally printed, it was 22 by 28 inches in size, and this was trimmed down, I guess, call it 22 by 25 inches in size. I didn't put a ruler to it. So, you always like to see a fully intact poster, and you like to see it with venue information too. But given what we have, at least all of the, all the magic is in the color, of course, in the artwork, and that is 100% intact on this poster. And since I haven't seen one with the venue info printed in it, I was very happy to get this in its place. For now, until I can find one with the venue information. I just love the way that Globe managed to pull off such a beautiful, jaw-dropping design without resorting to the very common colors of red and yellow, right? That's very common to grab attention on posters, and this just has this sublime green and orange, along with the natural black and white colors that come with a poster. So I think it just works tremendously. I can't say, I tested myself, I slept on it, I've had it for weeks just to see if it would wear off, but I really think it's absolutely an outstanding design for a Globe concert poster. I think it's just wonderful. And I'll come in for a little bit of a closer look here. You can see for Clovers, "the" is actually in a green clover, just a really nice sweet touch. And then Paul Williams and Hucklebuck there in orange, just beautiful, beautiful colors, really nice. And then you've got not one but two pictures of the Clovers, and then one big photo of bandleader and saxophonist Paul Williams there in the middle. And even, that white electricity all around Paul Williams, and in person right above his head. And it's just the balance of this design is just so nice and so special. It's just really, on the simplistic tip perhaps, but it's still just, I shouldn't say but, perhaps because of, it just works so beautifully. And then, oh my goodness, the song titles, holy cow. Moving in here for the two Clovers songs, and as you can see right there, the first one's in green above their picture, which is really a nice touch. And, on these posters, as you've seen me do other blogs, quite often the song titles are, sure, there'll be hits on there, but there'll also be sometimes their newest single, which ended up not going anywhere, and sometimes just like a B-side from 2 or 3 years ago, sort of a puzzling choice, but who knows exactly what went into decisions for what songs were to be used for these concert posters. You would naturally think they would be put on. The first priority would be to sell tickets, right? I mean, it is, after all, an advertising poster to sell tickets. Well, they certainly did their job here on this particular poster. My goodness. All three of these songs, as you can see, two with the Clovers and one there under the MS of Paul Williams' name, all three of these songs went to #1 on the R&B charts. And not only that, the real stunning statistic, they were #1, these three songs, for a total of almost half a year. That's just amazing. That's almost unfathomable. It's just stunning. It really is. So we'll start with the Clovers, and there they are, the picture on the right-hand side of the poster. And both of these were #1, and both for multiple weeks. Don't You Know I Love You, the summer of 1951, was #1 for 2 weeks. And then as radio programmers in the audience got used to them, under that Fool, Fool, Fool was the fall of 1951, and it was #1 for 6 weeks for the Clovers. So right there you have 2 months worth of the #1 spot on the R&B charts just with the Clovers. And then you get to Paul Williams and his honking tenor sax, and there you have the song, once again, Hucklebuck, which actually was the Hucklebuck with a hyphen, but abbreviated somewhat for this poster. And holy cats, it was a simple 12-bar blues, but that thing was #1 in 1949 on the R&B charts for 14 weeks. Oh my gosh, 14 weeks. So that makes a total of 22 weeks at number one for these three records. Definitely 5 months, almost half a year if you will. So just stunning chart power on this concert poster. And it's not like there's one or two other records listed to muddy things up, right? It's not like there's a stiff or a B-side or something in addition. It's just 3 songs, and the 3 were absolute gorillas on the R&B charts. So I just, makes it just like this solid gold poster with a gold-plated design. It's just such a favorite of mine. Now the Clovers, if you know R&B history, you know that they would go on to have just a real string of R&B hits. Again, these 2 records were their first 2 chart appearances, and in all, in the 5-year period from 51 to 56, I believe it is, 5 years, they'd have 19 top 10 R&B hits, all for the very respected and beloved Atlantic Records. So hooray for the Clovers for sure. Interestingly though, the Clovers never crossed over. So many R&B groups did in the 50s, but they could just manage a couple of measly top 40 hits on the regular pop charts. But one of those was the original version of Love Potion number 9 in 1959. So the Clovers are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, perhaps because of that lack of crossover, but they are members of the Vocal Group Hall of Fame and the Doo-Wop Hall of Fame. Then we get to Paul Williams with such a centerpiece picture here. Look at him, boy, just really holding that tenor sax, just looking great. And that picture should be familiar because it appears on lots of other posters throughout the 50s, down at the bottom. Hucklebuck, there we show it again, indeed his shining star. And that actually enabled Paul Williams. Well, first of all, you might say, Hucklebuck, number 1 for 14 weeks. What is this thing? Why don't I play it for a second, okay? Yeah, so that's you may recognize that very much as I dialed down the volume a little bit. And so that enabled, well, I should actually turn it off, it's distracting. The strength of Hucklebuck was something that enabled Paul actually to co-headline the next spring Alan Freed's Moondog Coronation Ball, which is actually sometimes called the world's first ever rock concert. And here's a picture of that poster. You can see it says Moondog Coronation Ball, and it does mention Alan Freed down toward the bottom, and Paul Williams is right there as a co-headliner with Tiny Grimes. So that's an amazing feather in your cap to be able to co-headline what is often considered by music historians to be the world's first rock and roll concert. So, and that was just the next spring. This poster times out to late 51. So, and interestingly also under Paul Williams' name there, I don't know if you saw it, but he calls his group the Hucklebuckers. And based on the strength of that hit record you just heard, he would forevermore sort of call his backup group the Hucklebuckers, which is kind of fun. And interestingly, Paul Williams sort of appeared at the, he was the big band that did a lot of 50s tours of multiple artists and everything, and his name and picture was quite often at the bottom of really cool rock and roll posters and R&B things throughout the 50s. And here's an example of one from the summer of 1957. It's called the Fantabulous Rock and Roll Show with Ruth Brown, Bo Diddley and the Coasters, and you can see right down there at the bottom with the same picture on my poster that I just showed you, only much smaller, Paul Williams. And it actually says with the Hucklebuck Orchestra. So there were various spins on what he called his group, but Hucklebuck was part of it. So boy, this is just such a, it's almost like this is like a seed poster, if you will. There's a psychedelic rock poster from Red Dog Saloon in Virginia City, which is considered the seed psychedelic concert poster. This is almost the seed for R&B and rock and roll posters throughout the 50s, with Paul Williams being really big here and then shrunk down to be the bottom of so many traveling reviews for the next 10 or 15 years. I'll call it the next 10 years. Anyway, a beautiful globe poster for R&B fans. Just loving this one, and I hope you did too. Thanks a lot for coming by to see it, and we'll see you next time soon. Bye-bye.